Hi everyone, Paula MacLean again, back with Module 9. We're going to talk about 10 really powerful strategies to boost your recruitment. This is a new module for 2017, and one of the things that I really want to talk about is the importance of doing things differently. We're in a tight labor market in many communities right now, and if you're a smaller organization, you're probably experiencing that in smaller communities. We're experiencing really tight labor markets. So we're going to talk about what can we do that might support a higher level of successful recruitment. Now, just before we get started, I want to share with you the quote by Rita Mae Brown that's on your slide. And insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. If we don't change anything, then nothing will change. And so I really want to encourage you to step up and use some of the strategies that you're going to see in this module. You don't have to use them all. It would be a good idea that you use more than one. But even if you just started with one, you're going to see some benefits and some improvement. I've had client agencies of mine who have doubled the number of applicants, and in some cases far more than that. And in some cases we've also quadrupled the number of people that we can interview, meaning not only are we getting more applicants, we're getting better quality applicants as a result of some of the strategies that we're going to be talking about. You need to modify or adapt the strategies we're going to talk about to fit your organization. There's no such thing in recruitment as one size fits all. But I also am going to ask you to challenge some of your current practices, to be innovative, to be creative, and to be able to, kind of boost your recruitment requires that we not kind of sit around our leadership tables anymore and talk about, well, how many people we're going to get to reply, who reply to our ad or our posting. And sometimes we get none, sometimes we get one or two, and we really feel like we're scratching the bottom of the barrel. We need to step up and do some things differently, and I'm going to give you about a 99% guarantee that those things, if you do them well and you do them with persistence, over the next few months you're going to see an increase in the number of applicants. You're also going to see an increase in the quality of your applicants. Let's talk for a second then about what's really going on. In a tight labor market, and maybe some of you are not experiencing a tight labor market, but many of us are, we're really fishing from what I call a puddle instead of a pool. Instead of a pool of candidates or a pool of applicants, we really only have a puddle. And we have competition from other not-for-profits in our communities. We have competition often from government and also from the business community. Size of an organization has an impact on recruitment, but it's not just about small organizations. Small organizations typically might hire 2 or 3 people a year, depending on how small you are and what your turnover rates are. When you're a larger organization, that number can be 20 or 30 people a year. Larger organizations tend to be in larger communities, so larger organizations have, a bigger pool or a bigger puddle to draw from, but they also have more competition. So, whether you're a small organization in a smaller community or a large organization in a larger community, you're probably facing some fairly major recruitment kinds of challenges. And these challenges are not new. It's been going on for quite a while, where we have been in a situation where we have a real shortage of people who want to work inside the not-for-profit sector. Now, one of the reasons that we have that shortage, of course, is that we don't pay many times what businesses pay, what government pays, and within our sector, sometimes there's a little bit of jockeying for position. Some organizations with some funders are actually paid a little bit more, funded a little bit differently, and their wages might be higher than some other organizations. So sometimes we're competing right within the sector. We also have organizations that have some of their self-generated revenue, whether that's from fundraising or whether that's from social enterprises, and those organizations might be able to, for example, provide better benefits or better working conditions or other kinds of things that a little bit of extra money brings in. And those organizations may be competing against organizations that don't do some of those things to generate their own revenue. Now, the other thing is, and we talked about this in another module, but we have higher than desirable turnover, and we really need to step up. And one of the fastest way to solve our recruitment problem is actually have fewer people to recruit. So the whole notion that recruitment and retention are connected, and they're connected both ways. If we do good recruitment, we have lower turnover and have better retention as well. So we have this kind of situation where we have this revolving door of people leaving and new people coming in, and people leaving and new people coming in. And the challenge for most of us is that when we lose good people, we have to replace them with good people. And so turnover is our enemy in the whole area of recruitment, and we really like to see turnover reduced, retention improved, so that we don't have to do as much recruitment and then don't have to face that puddle over and over and over again. And one of the complaints that most people talk to me about in the sector is we just don't get enough applicants, and the quality of the applicants is not really what we want to see, so that we have one or two standout candidates every time that we post for a vacancy and that we interview people for that position. Now let's just then flip it to what are our goals, and I want to work from the bottom of this slide going up. First of all, we want more and better qualified applicants, and then we want more and better candidates. Now the difference between an applicant and a candidate, just in a snapshot, is that an applicant is anyone who applies for the job, and a candidate is somebody who gets screened in for an interview. So we want more applicants. The best way to get better candidates is to have 10 or 12 or 15 applicants in a competition. And I know some of you are laughing, but I had a client agency just last month who implemented some of these strategies over the last 6 months or so, and that agency has quadrupled the number of applicants that they have for most positions in the organization. So, and there's no change in pay. There was some other changes that we're going to talk about, but there really isn't a potential here to boost the number of applicants, boost the quality of the candidates as well. And when we have better quality candidates, of course, we get better quality employees, and then that leads to improved retention. So we really have 4 goals that we want to meet, and we have to meet that with multiple strategies. Obviously, there's no such thing as a magic bullet that's going to make everything better and okay. So in the next 2 slides, this is the snapshot of the 10 strategies we're going to talk about. So I'm going to walk you through each one in detail, but I thought I'd give them to you kind of in a kind of compact kind of fashion. And remember that you need to go to your workbook, and your workbook has some study questions, some case study assignment. It also has some discussion questions, and then finally the mastery quiz. So take a quick glance now, and if you want to stop the video now while you kind of walk your way through and read the 2 slides, then that would be a great idea. But I'm going to keep on talking, and I'm going to go with strategy number 1 and talk about the whole area of changing up your postings or your ads. Now, some of you might still be using print media. Some of you using, online sources to be able to post your ads. Some of you are running posters around and putting them up in various locations. But we need to change what our ads look like and what the content of those ads are. So here are some of the problems we have with ads as they stand right now. First of all, they're too text heavy. They tend to be dense paragraphs of information. And just go check your own ads and just see if if they're any longer than about 1/4 of an inch on a printed page, if they're any more than a sentence or 2 in a paragraph. If you're using paragraphs instead of bulleted points, then we can change that up and make our ads look better. Now, remind yourself, better looking ads don't necessarily in and of themselves attract more people, but they'll at least get somebody being attracted visually to the ad long enough to be able to stand there or sit there and look at what the ad looks like. So a good looking ad draws a reader in, and that reader at least then knows something about what that ad is asking for. And they may not be interested for themselves, but they might say, hey, you know what? I saw this ad. Right? So the idea of a good looking ad is to make people read what is the content there rather than saying, oh, that's just too much text. We also have an overemphasis on all of the things that the organization requires of the prospective employee. And so very often the ad starts with a couple of sentences, and then it'll go employee or the candidate must have, and then it goes must, and I'll have a whole bunch of other paragraphs or bulleted points that say, here's all the things that you have to be able to demonstrate. Now, because we're fishing from a puddle, we need to be attracting people, and the more we demand of them, and the less it appears that we're going to give back, the more problematic our ad becomes. So it's visually unappealing, and we often also say something like, we thank all applicants, but only those selected for an interview will be contacted. contacted. Well, here's the problem with that. We're kind of desperate many times, and now we're basically saying we won't talk to you. And we often then don't put contact information, a website, an email address, a name, a phone number into the ad. Let me tell you, it's good public relations in your communities to talk to people. And so that if someone has a question, or they're curious about the hours, or they're wondering what the job pays, then it's really important that they be able to reach out and have that contact. And it does good public relations and good awareness building for you as an employer. And so it's really important that we have some contact information, and don't just take that line out. The reality is that you probably will only contact candidates, but it's a very off-putting thing to say that an employer who apparently values its employees and wants to attract good people then is basically saying, but we don't really care about most of the people who apply. We only care about some. So it's a very kind of elitist, not a very good way of kind of approaching the whole process of recruitment. And it belies an attitude, a certain amount of arrogance on the part of an employer that says that. And apologies to all of you who are putting that still in your ads, but it needs to stop. So just, have a conversation around your leadership table and say, let's take this out. It's probably not getting us anything. It's probably just more space in our ads or our postings. Now, what do we need to do to make things better? Well, I'm going to show you an actual ad that an organization that I work with rewrote. But here's some of the things we need. We need an attention-grabbing headline, not just a position title, right? An attention-grabbing headline that says something to the potential applicant, you should come and work for us. We need to use point form, and we need some white space on our paper that draws the reader in. We want to make sure that we put what the applicant will gain, or how the applicant will benefit, or how the applicant will contribute to the organization, and what is the give back by the employer. We need to put that first. That attracts people and says, hey, this employer actually understands that I bring value to the equation, that I'm needed, that I feel important, that I have something to contribute. So putting that first. Remember, we're in the people service business, so anytime we put people first, we're ramping up the outside message, the meta communication that says we value people, including the people that work for us. We also want to make sure that we do a list of the things that we'll offer the employee. So if that's extra training, if that's, particular benefits or holiday time or whatever it is, whatever your unique proposition is for an employee, and why should they apply for a job with you rather than a job with another not-for-profit or with a business or government, give them a compelling reason to be attracted to you. We need to include the critical skills and qualifications, of course, but make them shorter, make them more user-friendly, put them in a bulleted list. You must link this back to your website. You need more space to explain what you're about. In particular, if you're using print media, if you're using local newspapers, make sure you link back to the website, so then you have infinite space. You have space for a whole job description if you want to include it. Not that I think that usually attracts more candidates. But if you want to do more explaining about your organization, its programs, the services, or what's unique about this particular position that someone might consider it, and you can make sure that you put in that contact information so that people are curious about anything. If they want some clarification, they're going to pick up the phone, they're going to call you, or they're going to send you an email or a text. And make sure that we advertise the wage range or the salary range for the position. You don't have to pinpoint it, but most of us have a range. Maybe we have, 5 steps or 7 steps on a scale, and it's really important that we take a look at that range and say, why are we keeping it secret? I would never call on a house that I might consider buying unless the price is advertised. I would never submit an application for a job where it's not clear to me what that position pays. We don't know exactly what I get paid because I'm going to be somewhere in that range. But, it doesn't make any sense to me to have someone applying for a job that needs a certain level of income and that can't afford to take that job even if they were the most successful candidate. So we need to not keep it secret, and people will self-select. If the position just doesn't pay well enough to meet their personal life needs, to make a living, put food on the table and feed their kids, then they won't apply for the job. So while that's sounds like it might cause less people to apply. It actually helps us filter and not waste our time, reviewing applications and seeing candidates in an interview who then are surprised that we don't pay any more than we do. So really important that we consider changing that strategy and that we advertise. Now, for some people in some organizations, we're paying well above minimum wage. We're paying well above what many of the other organizations in the community might pay. And so advertising that wage range, why hide your light under a rock? Make sure that we give people that information so that they can make their own decision. Now, here's a really cool ad that we changed up. This is a wonderful organization called MacLean. They serve youth and young adults and families. And what they did is they took their old ad and through a process of drafting and redrafting. Now, I'm not suggesting this is a perfect ad format. In fact, if it was mine, I would probably tweak it a little bit more. But you can just see by all the little call-outs in the gray text on the margins, what are some of the things that you can observe that this organization has done. Now, this organization successfully tripled the number of people that were applying for positions, and you'll notice that one of the first things that you see on this is your amazing career begins right here. Life is short, work somewhere great. So rather than saying this is a relief worker program, relief worker position at our Parkside group home, it's actually saying this is a career kind of position. And in fact, many organizations that hire relief staff actually then promote those relief staff, the good ones, internal to the organization, and it does become a career path. It is a good starting point and proving ground for new people coming into our world of the not-for-profit sector. So you can see some of the things we've clarified the hours of work, but not by saying, here are the shifts, here are the shifts, here are the shifts, and giving a big paragraph of, and it's not described as being you must be working, able to work, etc., etc. It says in a nice little kind of graphic fashion that shifts will vary, that evenings, weekends, sleep, casual, those are all part of the picture. So it does it in a way that creates an interest by the reader to say, okay, that makes sense as a relief position, and the shifts will vary. So it talks about what the person's contribution is. So it's 3 bullets, and it just says, this is how you'll contribute, right? You'll be a member of a team, etc. And here's what we have to offer you is the next section. Notice we're not just putting must. We're saying, here's how your employer will give back to you. Work-life balance. This organization is very strong in this area. So they put that first. A competitive salary. Now, they've chosen not to put the salary in. I've canceled them otherwise, but you know what? This is your call. This is about modifying this strategies to meet with your expectations. Here's a little suggestion. If you think it's a bad idea to put the salaries in, then don't put them in. But if you want to test drive it, why don't you put your competitive salary, your range of your competitive salary in one ad, and then in the next ad, don't put it, and let's just see what kinds of people that draws. See if it draws any more people with one ad or the other. And then based on that evidence, go ahead and continue whatever that is, putting the salaries in or keeping the salaries out. Rewarding work, positive workplace, an opportunity to plan your shifts around your personal commitments. I would move that one up. It's a really, really good idea. And then finally, in order to get an interview, rather than, successful candidate will have the following qualifications. In order to get an interview, here's what you need to be able to do, and it's a bulleted list. Now, this is just one page of a 2-page ad that they post both on their website and in other locations, so there's a little bit more to it than this, but you get the idea of what kinds of things we can do that actually dress up the application or the advertisement or the posting. Now, this organization also started asking candidates when they came in for an interview, what did you think of our ad? Just to get some feedback. And I really like that idea. It will really help you. Some people might say, oh, that was good. I didn't notice there was anything special, but it was good. And some other people said to them, I knew this was my job. I just knew it was my job. The way it was done, it said I'm the person you're looking for. Right? Now, not only is that a great way to start an interview, But it really gives the organization some feedback that it's on the right track and that the posting or the advertisement is really attracting people. Okay, let's talk about strategy number 2, and that's expand how and where you post your advertisements. The first thing I want you to answer is, where are most of your prospective candidates hanging out? That's where your posting should go up. So if you're looking for relief staff to work in a group home environment, most of your prospective clients or prospective employees to work with that client group are probably in college and university kinds of environments. So go where they are and put the postings up there. Advertise in student newspapers. Those are far better ways of doing that. If you are looking for foster families, think about, where are the foster families going to be found? If you're looking at people who have BSWs or MSWs, where are those people likely to be reading and seeing that information? So we need to think strategically, and you need to stop posting and advertising in places that get you no return. Lots of people are posting online, but if online is not successful for you, why do it? Why put the time and energy into it? Now, before you abandon any of those locations, make sure you pump up your ads and change your postings so that they look good and that they're attractive and their readability is improved. So don't abandon your current sources now until later on. Now, we often use online media to put the postings up, but it's really a good idea to simply put headlines up and then link that online back to your website where you have the full posting available. Because often when you post something online, it messes up the formatting, it cuts off edges and cuts off bottoms of pages, and it doesn't cut and paste really well. So just hyperlink it back, put your website in, and then person can click on that because this is an online source of information. They can click on it and they come to your website. They can see all the cool stuff about your organization, but they can also see more about the position itself. And then you have, again, infinite space to be able to explain and to share information. Doing business in 2017 without a website is like not having a telephone in the 1990s. It's absolutely essential you have a website that is recruitment focused. If you do nothing else with your website, put your recruitment information on it. Even if it's a plain Jane website that you do yourself, doesn't matter. Make your career page lively and active and always up to date. And your career page needs one other key thing, and that's a pop-up that's a little form, and the form says, would you like to be kept informed of positions as they come available in our agency or in our organization? That allows someone to put their name in and their email address in, and you can automate that every time you put up a new posting on your website, all of those people receive an immediate email that says there's another posting up available on the ABC organization's website. Now, the cool thing is, when my lovely client MacLean did this a few months ago, within about 2 weeks, they had 200 signups, and this is in a city of 65,000 people or so. So not a huge base, but 200 signups, and they were blown away that there was actually 200 people that had gone to their website and looked at careers. And so this is a great way to use a very simple and also free notification so that anybody who has come to your website can sign up. So that pop-up won't cost you much to do, and it will make a huge difference in terms of informing people that there are jobs available. You need to include sharing buttons for social media, so Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. Those are very simple to put up, but when you're looking largely at a Generation Y, millennials kind of recruitment base, and Generation X, the group that's a little bit older than they are, they use social media, they tweet, retweet, and they use Instagram and Facebook for communication. So it's absolutely important that we put the social share buttons up for every single ad that you put up on your website. Make sure you use an online application system. This is a little bit more complicated, but what you want to do, you want to make it easy for people to apply. Two things: an application form, or simply a quick fill in the blank form where they can attach the resume. Most of us in this sector use resumes, not application forms. So, name, address, phone number, email address on the form that pops up, and then the ability to attach the resume, which makes it very easy. There's no printing, there's no folding, there's no running to the mailbox or finding a stamp. So this is a very simple way of doing it, and most people will use it. A few people will still send things to you via regular mail, but that's fine. We're just making this easier for people, taking away some of the bureaucracy or some of the things that are deterrents to making a quick application for a job that you're interested in. And if you're going to use paper posting, so I'll give you a quick example. We're looking for a peer mentor parent to work with young pregnant or moms with new babies. And we did an ad in the paper, we did a number of print ads, and we got 0 applications. It was kind of depressing. So we had a little brainstorming session committee that I was working on. We discovered that where would some of these peer mentor moms be? We came up with a list of things, and we ran around and we did little posters. Use the old style idea of putting tabs on the bottom that you cut with a pair of scissors that have a name, a phone number, and an email address. That works, and it's a great way to see how well your ad is being received. If you hit a hot location, put layers of those ads up so that when all the tabs are gone, the next one pops up behind it, and you'll be able to continue to do that. So you get a great idea of where the right placements for those ads are, because when you go back a week later and all the tabs are torn off, hey, this is a great location. People are noticing our ad and they're interested in the position. So make sure that when you're using those kind of old ways of doing business, you kind of ramp them up and you treat this as a creative, innovative kind of project. Make that posting look good. Put some graphics, print it in color, make it look good. And one of the things that we want to do is we also want to use little flyers. We call them Slim Jims. They're a third of an 8 by 11 sheet of paper, and the Slim Jims have the basic information that people need. And put those flyers up in your office, have them in all of your locations, hand them out at meetings that you're at, so that people know that you're recruiting. And you can fit a fair amount of information on 2 sides of that little slim sheet of paper. Okay, let's move to strategy number 3, and that is to create an employee referral program. This is absolutely sheer magic. And one of the things that I'll just tell you right up is that the literature on this, the research on this, says that an employee is more likely by 50% to be staying 2 years or more when they are referred initially by an existing employee. And the reasons for that are pretty simple. First of all, the existing employee speaks well of the employer, and so the employee already has a kind of a good feel, a candidate, when they come through the door. And the second reason is that this new employee has been schooled, coached a little bit, talked to a little bit about what the job is, what the organization is like, and there's a sense of connection after that person is hired because they already have a friend or a family member who works there. So this is really magical. Now, it'll cost you a little bit of money, but it doesn't have to break the bank. And if you're using any form of paid advertising, I have several organizations that I've worked with that have actually stopped doing the paid advertising and used that money to pay their employees who are making their referrals. Simplest version of this is to have $100 for every person who is hired paid to the employee who referred them. Now, it has to be an actual referral. It can't be just post on Facebook or tweet, kind of a mass blast of emails or something saying, we got a job, you should apply. It has to be a face-to-face, personal kind of referral. So $100 to the employee. Now, could that be 50? Could it be 25? Absolutely. It has to be enough to be worthwhile to the employee to say, you know what, you should apply. Many times that employee will have coffee with the prospective person, have a little visit, go for a walk, and then tell the person about the job and tell the person about the employer and the organization. You can add other incentives incentives, you want to kind of layer it a little bit, you can add, another $50 if both the employees are there, and, fill in the time frame at the end of probation, at the end of 6 months, at the end of 1 year, whatever that time frame is that you want to do. So you can, make it a little bit richer if you have a little deeper pockets, but at the very simplest, it's some money in response to a request by the employer to refer people. I have one small organization in a city of 15,000 people who is doing this, and they do no other form of advertising. And they've expanded it to include referrals from their volunteers, so that if they have a volunteer who refers somebody who's successful, then the volunteer gets the same incentive. And it's been absolutely magical for them. Strategy 4 then is to make recruitment an event. And I have great examples of this, but I'm going to give you one that's probably the most powerful of that. And that is an organization who decided in their town of about 5,000 people that they simply weren't getting any candidates that they could even interview. And yet they felt like there was people in the community that should be interested in the positions that they had available. And this organization paid better than many of the other retail organizations or companies in town. And they were running residential programs and vocational supports for people, for adults with disabilities. And so they really felt like they had great training, that they would bring people in kind of at a base level, that they'd be able to train and mentor and coach them to be able to do the work, and that there was many people in the community that they could think of, that they could actually name, that they thought should be interested, and yet nobody applied, and they kept running ads and getting very few applicants. Here's what they did. They offered a first aid training and basic CPR training course for free. They also advertised that they were going to be able to provide a little bit of food. So it was, pizza and pop. And so that was the draw. And they had so many people sign up that they had to do 3 separate sessions because they could only take 15 people in each one of those sessions. They expected almost no one, but they had 50 some people who signed up to do this. So they had to break it into 3 sessions and do it. Now, 3 times. Now, one of the things they did is they had their program staff do a little introduction to the organization, do a little PR talk at the beginning. Then they had one of their staff who was certified first aid and CPR instructor do the basic CPR and first aid. And so that was the teach piece of this. The participants still had to pass the test, so that was done after the session was being done. And then they had their hiring person, who was one of their managers, came and talked about what a great place this was to work, and that they were having some vacancies and that they would really invite people to consider applying. The final part of this event was they had local human resources people from the government office come in and do a presentation, 10-15 minutes, saying we have resources for you, we'll help you build your resume, we'll help you practice for interviews, and so if you would like to come to us outside of our evening or our afternoon, then we would really want to help you. This organization found that was the only thing they needed to do, and they multiplied it times other communities where their services were offered, and they did no advertising. It saved them money. They still had to do a little mini event every few months, but this had a natural effect of drawing people into the organization even when we were between recruitment events. So it was an absolutely awesome way of drawing people into the organization. So think about a way that you could customize this idea that would work for your organization to turn recruitment into an event. You don't have to give away free training, but if that's an option, you might consider it. But how do we draw people into the organization to do something fun, upbeat, that you're pretty sure you'll get 10 or 15 or 20 people? And as the slide says, make sure you provide refreshments. People will come for free food. And this is at the very least a really good public relations event that will kind of up the profile of your organization as an employer in your community. All right, you want to make sure when you do your events, you do them at various times of the day and the week. So you don't want to just do them once. You want to do them multiple times and at times that are convenient for people. Make it absolutely clear why you're there. You're there because you need good people to come and work for you. And make sure that people are clear walking out the door what positions you have available. You can have the postings printed out and ready for them, and what they must do to apply. And make sure when you're working with people that you have a partnership with your broader community that will support anything that you are offering, like help with resumes or practice with interviews. Okay, let's move to strategy number 5, which is a testimonial video. And I've given you in your handout a hyperlink to a great example of a testimonial video. This video was done by new media students at a local university, and there was a grant offered. It was $1,000, and 2 students were hired to do the video. So that was the sum total of money. It's a 6-minute video. It's done by current employees in a variety of different locations, types of employment, and it is really cool to see people talk about why they love to work for this organization. So the idea behind the testimonials is to prove to people, we call it social proof, to prove to people that this is a good place to work. Now you can engage your volunteers in this, you can have clients participate in the video, and current employees absolutely have to be there. And it's short, it's sweet, it goes up on your website, and I'd suggest when somebody goes to the career page on the website, it's on autoplay, which means that when they pop to the landing page on your career page, before they see more information, they see your little 3-minute or 5-minute video where people talk about what a cool place and a great place this is to work. It takes a little bit of time and just a little bit of money, and it will make a huge difference in terms of the number of people who will actually fill out that application form, attach their resume, and fire it off and send it to you. You need to change up interview practices. So the first five strategies were about how do we attract more people. Now I'm going to talk about how do we help ourselves find the right people for the jobs. So the purpose of any interview is to help us differentiate an okay or an okay good kind of candidate from someone who really reaches out and says, I'm the person for the job, I'm exceptional, hire me. So that's the purpose of the interview. So questions that we ask in an interview should help us differentiate between a good candidate or an okay candidate and someone who's really exceptional and is clearly somebody we would consider for the job. I want you to take a look at your current questions in your interview practice and look at how many of them are not giving you any way to differentiate between good and really exceptional candidates. And I'll give you a couple of examples. These are ones that come to mind for me, and I'm going to bet you can add to this list. Is, for example, how would you deal with a coworker who was late twice this week? Now, what's the person going to say? 100% of people will say, well, I'd just go and talk to them about it. And if you said, well, how would you approach them? And they would probably say, well, I'd just be like polite and professional and kind of quiet and calm. And so, everybody knows that that's the right answer to the question. All of the candidates in every competition that you ask this question, or some version of it, you all have versions of this, is going to answer it the same way, is they're going to talk to the person. The problem is, when you hire those people, they don't do it. Some of them can't. Some of them lack the courage. Some of them lack the skill. But it doesn't give us anything. That question doesn't help us with anything. Do you support our mission values of the ABC agency? Or, do you feel like your values align? What are they going to say? They want the job. You're interviewing them. They are going to say, no, I think your values are my values. I think, your mission is just, it's where I've always wanted to work, right? It doesn't, everybody is going to say something of that variety, and it doesn't help you differentiate good or average from really exceptional people. And then the other one, and again, most of you have variations on this, about tell me about a time when you accomplished something terrific or solved a difficult problem or whatever. Now, these types of questions came from a philosophy, a practice called behaviorally based interviewing. I'm not a big fan. We could do another whole video on why, but the reality is that this is inviting people to storytell. And storytelling doesn't have to be truthful telling. And so the problem with it is that some of your sharpest, mentally most creative, most innovative kinds of people are the best liars, frankly. They're going to string you a line. They're going to tell you a story. They're going to make something up on the fly, and that is not necessarily necessarily the person you want to hire. Somebody who's fast on their feet is not necessarily the person that you were looking for. And so we need to think about, are the questions in our interviews actually getting us to differentiating the quality of our candidates? Now, I want you to stop the video now, and I want you to do the learning exercise. The learning exercise is review your current questions, pick 1 or 2 or 3 positions, identify the key questions that are not helping you find an okay candidate, or find a candidate that's exceptional rather than differentiating that person from somebody who is just okay. So stop your video right now and grab a couple of examples of your interview questions, and you should be asking different questions in different interviews, so you might have 2 or 3 of those you want to look at, and do a little drill down, do a little bit of analysis, and then I'll be back and we'll continue on and we'll see how we're going to fix this particular problem and what kinds of questions we can replace it with. Okay, so let's talk about how we're going to fix this then. Hopefully you did a little bit of analysis and you found some problem questions. You may have found some good questions too, which is absolutely awesome. First of all, one of the things we want to do is we want to have people show us who they are. So let's go back to the example of your coworker was late twice this week. What we're going to do with that particular question is we're going to turn it into a mini role play. We're going to say, let's suppose that I am Mary and I am your coworker, and twice this week I have been late by more than 15 minutes. I would like you to show me how you would approach me to deal with your frustration or your annoyance or the inconvenience that has been caused by me by being late twice. Now, one of the things that happens is people say, you want me to do this like right now? And you say, yeah. It'll just be a couple of minutes. You can handle it, right? Well, people will step up. They'll try because this is an interview situation, so they don't want to refuse. Role plays are hard. This is a pressure-packed kind of question. But what are you doing? You're testing what that person is capable of. And if you hire them, they don't have to respond perfectly. If you hire them, they're a known quantity. You know they can either do that or they can't. If they're all over the map and they can't, you might still hire them, but you know you have some coaching to do. You know that you have an employee who tries to do something, but they weren't successful at doing that. Now, the other thing that is wonderful about questions like this being just one example of several that you could craft, is that you get a chance to give some feedback. So you can say, okay, you know what, you did that pretty well. The things you could add are, and then you give them a little bit of, feedback, and then you say, let's do a redo. Do you feel like doing a redo? Based on the feedback I just gave you. Let's do it again. I'm Mary. I've been late twice. How are you going to handle this? And it doesn't take long. Again, we're talking 2 minutes of a quick little role play. And now what have you assessed? You've assessed how a person takes feedback and how quick a learner they are. And I have had people in interviews actually say to me, no, it's okay. We don't need to redo it. And I'm thinking, they're in an interview, they want the job. I just gave them some feedback that was helpful. It's kind critique. And it was supportive. I told them how to do it better, and they don't want to learn. They're not prepared to put themselves out there and take the feedback and try to integrate it and do something with it. And is this the person you want working for you? Well, it's a good question. And can you see now we're beginning to differentiate between an okay candidate and a really exceptional candidate. And someone who refuses to do the redo is not going to be on your radar anymore. And if they are, then you're really going to be scraping the bottom of the barrel, because anybody that you hire should be able to learn. Anybody that you hire should be able to take feedback from their supervisor. Now, you're doing one more thing when you craft questions and use them in this way, and that is you are communicating to the candidate that if they are hired, they are to expect feedback and to be a learner when they come to work for your organization. That you as a supervisor or manager are going to be evaluating how well they are doing, and you're going to be giving them kindly and with encouragement coaching and advice and direction on how to do their jobs well. This ups the bar for managers and supervisors because it says we have to be active in the way we work with our organization's employees. And secondly, it also says to employees the standards here are not high, not low, they're high. And I don't mean excessively high or unreasonably high. But so we do many things when we change that one thing inside our interviews. Very important then that we take a look at the interview questions and we do some diagnosis. Now, here's your mini assignment. I want you to go back to your questions that you use with applicants, and I want you to be looking at them with new eyes. I want you to change them up and revise your questions, get rid of those useless ones, and find some new ones that actually test in an interview environment, test the skills of that person that you were thinking about hiring. Strategy number 7 is to hire for attitude and train for skill. Now, this dovetails very nicely with the previous strategy. Now, many times we consider equivalencies in the positions that we are advertising for, and we will compromise certain things. In some organizations, in some positions, you have to hire someone with a certain certification, a certain license, a certain professional association. So you may have to hire somebody who is registered in their particular field or has completed a particular degree, holds a certain certification or standard. So those are not people that we are going to do a whole lot of compromising on. However, sometimes we'll take someone who is going to soon complete their BSW and be a registered social worker, or complete their degree in psychology, or complete their diploma in something else, and we'll hire them anyway because we know they're so close to meeting the criteria that we need them to meet to be able to do the job. Many other positions inside our organizations, we might have a hope for criteria for minimum standards or minimum qualifications, but we're prepared for the right person who has the right attitude. We are prepared to modify that or bend that criteria a little bit. So who should we look for if we're prepared to do a little bit of equivalency testing, meaning we're going to bend some of our own rules? And one of the things we want to look at is people who have positive attitudes about work in general, about the organization, about the mission, about the people served. We want to make sure that people are willing and fast learners, ideally, but at least willing learners. And we want to make sure that we have people who are open to feedback and coaching. So when we talk about attitude, I'm not just talking about little Miss Bouncy who comes in the door, or, the guy who comes in is really excited and he really, he's keen to do the work for your organization. Any of those people might be good quality candidates, but don't just kind of assume that because someone is bouncy that they have a positive attitude. They are coming with their best selves to the interview. They're trying to do their best. And so if they turn on some charm, or if they turn on some positive attitude, that's great. It says they want the job. And I love it when people come in the door being excited and positive. But I want you to drill down. And one of the ways to drill down is to use those role play situations to actually test how people receive feedback. Don't say, how do you feel about feedback in coaching? Right? What's the person going to say? I hate coaching and I'm a slow learner. Not good to ask questions that have obvious answers. So we want to say, I'm going to give you some coaching around something, and see how that person actually provides you with a response. What's their reaction? How do they respond? Do they learn from that? And if you do a redo, are they better the second time around? We need to make sure when we hire people with equivalencies that we have an expectation inside the organization that every single current employee who's been there for any longer than their probationary period considers himself to be a coach of every new person who comes in the door. None of this protect your territory, there's another new one, they're going to not do the job as well as I do it, so I'm not going to be very nice, they're not going to play very nice in the sandbox with them. Everybody is a coach. Everybody has a vested interest in the success of the team and the success and skill building of every new person who is employed here. So begin to create an organizational culture, if you don't have one already, that says this team that has gotten a new colleague transplanted needs to treat this person like gold. We want them here 5 years from now. We want them doing their job exceptionally well, and we want to make sure that this team wraps their arms around this person, coaches them to help them master the skills and get ready to do the job as quickly as they possibly can, and that it's not left to a supervisor or a manager to be doing orientation. This should be a full-on group effort to support a new person coming into the job, and you need to prepare the new person coming in to say every member of the team has something to teach you and they are ready to do that. So creating a coaching culture within your organizations is a really important part of what we do. Now, making sure that we also provide support for all those coaches. So they need to have some good boundaries. They are not the new employee's boss. And we need to make sure that what they're teaching the person is best practice. So if you have people who are really underperforming, I would not turn them into coaches. I would make sure I lift their performance first before they start coaching other people, or we might be handing a new employee off to someone who's going to show them some bad practices and share some not so good habits with them. All right. Next strategy is to go faster. This is strategy number 8. I want to get you into thinking about your own bureaucracy and the things that are slowing you down. There's lots of points in time that we can speed things up. For example, from the time that the person resigns their position to the time that you put an ad in the paper should be a day or two. You know they're leaving and you know you have somebody to replace, so whatever you need to do to make that happen, to get those postings up, to run them around town, make it happen, because you have some time. Usually the person's given you a week or two's notice. You have some time to be able to ramp up your recruitment and get ready to bring somebody in the door. Shorten the time that you have between the time that applications are received and the times that interviews are scheduled. Book your interview days in advance. As soon as the applications or the postings go out, make sure whoever is going to be in on the interviews to set aside an afternoon, a morning, or whatever it's going to take for those interviews, and screen the applications as they come in. So don't pile them up on somebody's desk. Hopefully there's a whole pile. Don't pile them up on somebody's desk until the competition closes. As soon as one comes in the door, hot prospect, send it to whoever has to see it to screen it. They're either in for the interview or they're not in for the interview, and call them right away and book the interview. Right? This can be the difference between hiring some of the very best people in your community and missing out on the chance. If you pile them in a pile, they hear nothing. Because remember what your pile is. 10 people maybe, right? 2 or 3 really top-notch people, 8 people that are maybe okay, probably 3 or 4 people that you're going to interview, and your top-notch people may be gone by the time the competition even closes for applications. So, great person comes in the door, the resume goes flying around the managers and supervisors' offices really quickly. You agree that you should interview them, and maybe even the same day or the following day they call for an interview. Even if the interview is a week away, at least you know that person is in the door, and at least they know they got a great response. And the public relations and the good feeling that this gives a good candidate is really positive. It says, we have our act together. So we need to speed stuff up, and we need to get out of our own way to make things better in the whole recruitment process. Well, I don't want you to rush or skip steps, but I want you to look at your own systems and say, is there a better, a faster way that we can communicate to our best applicants, you're in the running, okay? And then communicate with all the people who don't get an interview. Communicate with them immediately at closing. You don't have to wait until the person is hired. You can just simply say, I'm sorry, you weren't granted an interview with this. We really wish you well. If they are a candidate who might be, an applicant who might be qualified for other positions, ask them if it's okay to let their resume stand for other positions that they may be qualified for. So they might not get this job, but they might get another job down the road. Take a look at where there might be external blocks to your hiring process. Now, criminal record checks, driver's license abstracts, credentialing checks for degrees and diplomas and certifications. Where I live, we have something called a vulnerable persons check, which makes sure they have no child welfare complaints. And so, we have reasons to do these things well, but very often there's a backlog, for example, with criminal record checks, so that the authorities that are doing the check are backlogged, and there are multiple ways of working around that. Sometimes there's an alternative group that can do this work. Sometimes a meeting with your executive director and the manager or director of whoever is doing that check can expedite this. Very often we need to educate our outside partners how critical it is that we expedite this process. So if it's a police service, for example, that does your criminal record checks, and they are, putting people at the bottom of the pile, and it takes a week or 2 weeks before the check is done, we can, invite your executive director to go out into your community, have a meeting, and say, we need to find a way of expediting this because we are dying out here without adequate people to be able to cover our workloads or cover our shifts. So do what you can to grease the wheels to make this better with your outside partners if there are delays in that process. Small and simple changes in your own system and in the way things work outside the organization can make a huge difference in the process. One of the things I want to just highlight in the whole area of some examples, and I talked already about not waiting to do the screening, and screening and interviewing, setting the interviews up with candidates as soon as you have somebody that will be a good candidate for the job. Make sure when you are reference checking that you ask the candidate what is the best way to contact this person. Is it by email? Is it by text? Is it by telephone? Make sure you have alternative phone numbers for people so that it's not just a work number, that you have a home number and you have a cell number. And always ask for a third or a fourth reference. If you have only asked for 2, ask for a third one in case the person, one of the first 2 or 3 is not available at all. They're out of the country. They're recovering from surgery. Whatever. And all this stuff happens, and then we say, but we don't have a second applicant, or you don't have a second reference, and you can't hire with less than 2. So make sure you ask for a backup reference, who maybe not the preferred reference, but that you can go to if you need to as an alternative to the first 2 or 3 that were offered by the candidate. And so one of the things we're doing here is we're saying, if we snooze, we lose. If we slow this down because of our own bureaucracy, because we're kept, stumbling over ourselves, then what happens is that we lose some of the best candidates. The average and okay candidates will still be in the competition because nobody else has hired them. But the very best candidates may have accepted a job somewhere else. And they may have even been hoping that they would be called to work for you. So we can't afford to go slowly through this process. We need to speed it up, and we need to look at our own systems and improve on those to make that happen. Second last strategy number 9, is to provide rather than require mandatory training. Some of the mandatory training that you require, like first aid, medication administration, certain other trainings that you might have, are better provided in-house than they are demanded of people coming in the door. And I would recommend to you that you create community partnerships where you can get that training happening quickly. Very often you can pay for it, and the employee can pay you back, because sometimes when people are not working, going to a $100 course to do their first aid, it's either that or don't put food on their table. So it can be really important to say, if you need this training, we will either provide it or we'll pay up front for you to go get it before you start your position with us. So this assumes you've got an applicant who was interviewed, became a candidate, who you reference checked, and you are now ready to offer the position, but might be short on some of the mandatory training, the basic training that you're expecting. And what you want to do is you want to move that barrier out of the way that allows them to become an employee of your organization with the support and help of the organization. Now, some organizations don't have the revenue, don't have the resources to be able to make that happen, but very often you can put $100 up front for this example first aid training, but then you can have that money come back to you, and you can say, off your second or your third paycheck, we'll take that $100 back. So now the employee has a little bit of flexibility. They have some money in their jeans, and so if you want to have that paid for by all of your employees, then by all means make it possible, and essentially floating your new employee a short-term loan for a minimum amount of money. So making that possible will speed up your hiring process and will get the person in the door. Now, remind yourself that there's some things you can't speed up, or you're potentially compromising the quality of the candidate, but there are some things that we do that we can certainly make happen more quickly. Final strategy is going to feel like a funny one to you, but it's absolutely critical, and that is to survey your current staff about what's good and what should change. We should do this once every year or two. We often call it an employee satisfaction survey or an employee engagement survey. And what we're doing is we're asking a defined group of questions. When I design them, I use SurveyMonkey. It's a really inexpensive tool. There's even a free version of SurveyMonkey. There are lots of other surveying tools as well. I like SurveyMonkey just because it's really quick to set up the surveys and doesn't require any particular technical skill. So what we're doing now is we're asking employees a set of questions. That can be anywhere from 10 to 100 questions, and we're asking them, what shouldn't we mess with? What's going well here? What's our, where are our strengths? What are the things we're doing, top notch? And then what are the things we should fix? Because let me tell you what the should fix list leads to. It should lead to management action. The reputation of your organization in the community as an employer is carried to that community by your current employees. So what they are not happy about and what are the hot button issues goes out into the community. They tell their spouses, they tell their friends, they tell their family members, they tell their mothers, and then out that goes. Doesn't matter if you live in a town of 1,000 people or a city of 1 million, that reputation very quickly moves out into the broader community, and it defines you. It tells the broader community, is this a good place to work, and do I want to apply for a job when I see a posting? So this is our call to action. We are in it to find out where the things are that we need to fix. Resist the temptation of talking yourself out of fixing the things that employees are talking about in their surveys. Now, compensation is going to come forward as one of the things you need to fix. One of the things I like to do with employee satisfaction surveys say, we are working to improve wages and benefits for all of our employees and for the sector as a whole. Actual wording of a question. And in addition to better compensation, what are the 3 things or the 5 things that would make the most difference to improve the quality of your working life here at ABC Agency? All right. So we're saying, in addition to what we're already doing around compensation, because we get that that's a problem and we're working to fix that problem, we'll continue to do it for the next decade to come. But in addition to improving your compensation, your wages and your benefits, what could we in addition be doing? What could we fix or make better? And make it 1, 2, or 3 things. You can say, what's the most important thing? People will still give you a couple. If you ask them to give you the 3 most important, then you can do a little calculation of how many times those 3 things come up across the number of employees that you have. And then set an action plan to fix those things. Don't talk yourself out of fixing them. This is people's perceptions are the reality. So if they tell you communication is not good, then go to a focus group, go to a staff meeting and say, we heard loud and clear, communication is not good. Tell us what's not good. What do we need to do to fix it? What's the role that you and we can, in partnership with each other as employees and managers, what we can do to make things better and to make things change for the better. That reputation even the reputation of listening and caring about what people believe will carry itself out into the community and return in an investment of people being interested in the work that you do and interested potentially in becoming a future employee. All right, you have a final exercise to do, and what I'm going to ask you to do is to take a look at these 10 strategies, and then in your leadership team, around your table of supervisors and managers, have a conversation about what can we use that will boost our recruitment. Pick 3 to 5 strategies and implement them. Give yourself somewhere between 6 to 12 months, and I suggest you do a little bit of baseline data. Look at the number of applications per vacancy, per competition that you've had over the last 12 months or so. So gather that information because you want to have something to compare with. So if you've had 5 position postings or 50 position postings in the last year, then say how many applications did we get for each one of those, do an average. And you could do an average by type of position, by program location, by size of program, whatever you want to do, however you want to break it down. But gather some back time data for comparison, so that when you do your implementation, you'll be able to measure your success, be able to figure out which things are working best for you. So you have some work to do, and one of the things I want you to think about is if you change nothing, nothing changes. This sector has been up against the wall in terms of being able to hire good people and having enough people to even interview. We've had our backs to the wall for a decade, and we are not doing enough to be able to manage that process in a way that says we can bring our organization to another level. And so my question of you then is, what's next? Think about how you can modify the strategies that we've talked about here, how you can put them together in a way that makes sense for your organization, and then do something. Even if you do one thing or two things or three things from the list, you'll begin to say, and first of all, it creates hope for you. It creates a sense of optimism, because there's nothing more hopeless and helpless than doing nothing. And so bring this to the next level, and then begin to see the fruits of your labor, and then say, hey, if we did not just two things, but if we did 5 things or 6 things, and add to the list the stuff that I've talked about are only 10. There might be 15, there might be 20. You might invent some. Send me an email to Paula MacLean at learningforleaders.ca and tell me of some of the creative stuff that you are doing that will boost your recruitment, and I'll add it when I update my next modules. I'll add your ideas to the module when I teach this section. So that's all for now, folks. I'm really looking forward to hearing from you and some of the things that you're doing. And we have a new Facebook group. We've got a couple hundred people in the group already, which is really cool. And I've given you the Facebook group. This is the one for leaders who are in the not-for-profit and community-based sector. So join us on Facebook. You'll see a ton of videos and articles from all over the world and all over the internet. And I'm also doing Facebook Live program as well. And so you'll be able to log in once every 2 or 3 weeks, and you'll be able to have an interaction where you can type questions to me and I'll answer them right there in front of you. So great opportunity for some more free learning in the Facebook closed group. So talk to you again soon. We've got Module 10 coming up. Module 10 is going to be on stress management. I'm not going to teach it. You're going to have a different instructor. Her name is Glenda, and Glenda is a long-term college instructor, and she brings some really cool stuff to the whole area of managing stress, self-care, helping people manage those huge workloads that everybody is facing. So talk to you soon. See you in video 10.
What?